The snow leopard clan waited for over 10,000 years. At last, fate delivered them a perfect heir. But to everyone's shock, she chose to marry into their mortal enemy, the Black Panther clan. After a difficult and painful labor, she gave birth to a single child and lost her life in the process. The patriarch was heartbroken, grief-stricken, enraged, helpless. But no matter the pain, he had no choice but to clean up the shattered mess his daughter left behind. Time passed. 7 long years went by in a flash. The child grew up safe and sound, yet not a single trace of the snow leopard bloodline's power had awakened. And now the old patriarch's patience was wearing dangerously thin. In a fit of fury, the patriarch barked a command. His granddaughter was to be locked away in the dark, cold attic. From that moment on, the girl's life descended into torment. What awaited her was nothing short of inhumane treatment. Food became a luxury. She was even forced to fight off rats for scraps in that freezing, decaying attic. One day, the patriarch stormed in, eyes burning with rage. With a flimsy excuse, he began shouting, beating, and cursing her mercilessly. Then, without warning, he grabbed her by the collar and dragged her all the way to the balcony. With no hint of mercy, he hurled her onto the icy stone floor. Without uttering a single word, he slammed the iron door shut behind her. Till's hands were swollen and raw from the biting cold. The snow kept falling thicker and heavier, blanketing the ground around her. All she could do was curl into herself, shivering violently. Powerless, helpless. Trembling was all she could manage. Soon the door creaked open once again. The current heir of the family, Cornelia Nistin, stepped inside with elegance and pride. She was Till's aunt. And even though the girl's heart-wrenching cries echoed through the air, Cornelia didn't even flinch. Today was the day her daughter, Ro, was getting her custom dress. Nothing could be allowed to ruin her mood, not even a suffering child. Ro was Till's cousin. The only difference between them was a pair of icy blue eyes, the emblem of the snow leopard bloodline. If only I had blue eyes too. Maybe, just maybe, someone would treat me gently. The thought alone brought tears silently streaming down Till's pale cheeks. She begged again and again, "Aunt, please, let me in. I'm begging you." But Cornelia's gaze remained cold, emotionless. With a chilling voice, she said, "Whether you're a snow leopard or a black panther, weather like this isn't enough to kill you." After those cold, heartless words, Cornelia turned and walked away, without a single glance back. Time passed, no one knew how long. The heavy snow kept falling until it completely buried Till's frail body. Her consciousness began to blur. In the haze, her grandfather's cruel words echoed in her mind. "You're the one who killed your mother." Her aunt's scathing voice followed, sharp as a blade. "How could something like you even be born?" And then came Ro's voice, dripping with mockery. "People like you will never be wanted anywhere." Laughter rang in her head. Ro's voice, her grandfather's joy, warm smiles exchanged between them. But to Teal, it all felt like poison. When she opened her eyes again, she was back in the attic. "Someone saved me," she thought weakly, her breath shaky. But as her eyes fell on the wound on her hand, she paused. That scar, it was from a month ago, when Ro pushed her down the stairs. This wound, it feels like it just appeared yesterday. But no, that happened a whole month ago. Did I go back in time? Teal stared at her hand, her voice trembling. How could that be possible? Suddenly, a glowing yellow orb of light appeared in her palm, radiant and dazzling like a miniature star. But in the next instant, it vanished without a trace. Did I imagine that? Teal muttered in confusion. There was definitely something glowing in my hand. She shook her head hard, trying to snap herself out of it. Now's not the time to be staring at my palm. If I really have returned to the past, then I have to escape from here. Staying any longer will only lead to danger again. But even if she managed to get out, where would she go? The snow outside was merciless. If she fled aimlessly, she might just freeze to death in the wilderness. If only someone could help me, she thought silently. Just then her gaze fell on a shattered mirror lying on the floor. Reflected within it, a pair of golden eyes. The signature of the Black Panther clan, the golden eyes of Astrian. Her father's family, the one she had always been forbidden to speak of. Maybe, just maybe, that place would take me in. Suddenly, a commotion erupted outside the attic door. She crept to the window, straining her ears. Take this to the guest chamber. It's for tonight's dinner. Then it hit her. Of course, it's that day. Her cousin, Ro, was currently competing with other noble girls for the title of crown princess candidate. The entire household was in chaos. No one had time to care about a discarded girl like her. This is my chance to escape. As long as I flee during the royal guest stay and reach Astrian, I might still have a future. She carefully picked up the last scraps of food left in the attic. This was the first step of her plan. But just as she was about to eat, a rat lunged at the food, nearly ruining everything. Without hesitation, she transformed into her snow leopard form, declaring her territory. The sight of sharp fangs and primal ferocity sent the rat scurrying away in terror, disappearing into the shadows. She curled back into the tattered blanket, hiding her body and waiting patiently for the cover of nightfall. She had to conserve energy, maintain this form until the royal guests arrived. Only then would she have a real chance to escape. Yet as the minutes ticked by, a deep melancholy settled in. What if my father is just like grandfather? What if he wants nothing to do with me either? She recalled her grandfather's cruel words. If the Black Panther patriarch sees you, he'll kill you on sight. That family hates your very existence. Maybe he's right, she thought bitterly. After all, my mother died giving birth to me, and I'm just a cursed half-blood. But if I don't go to Astrin, I have nowhere else to go. She covered her face, thoughts swirling. If I just stayed quiet, would they eventually accept me? I could survive on barely anything, live like I didn't even exist. I lasted 2 whole days on just a piece of bread. 2 nights later, under the cover of darkness, Teal gently opened the attic door. Holding her breath, she glanced around, making sure everyone in the mansion was fast asleep. First, I need to go to grandfather's room. I have to find something valuable. With that, I can pay the stableman to take me to Astarian. She silently slipped into her grandfather's study. Carefully, she rummaged through drawers, cabinets, every corner thoroughly checked. Soon, her fingers brushed against cold metal, gold coins. Enough to hire a carriage and disappear from this place forever. But just as she turned to leave, her eyes caught a glimmer. A pendant bearing the crest of the Black Panther clan, nestled deep within the drawer. She gently opened the pendant. Inside, tucked behind the cover, was a photograph. A picture of her mother. Her mother's gentle smile, frozen in time, pierced Till's heart. She stared at it, throat tightening, tears welling up in her eyes. Without hesitation, she clutched the pendant tightly. I'm never coming back here, she thought. But at least, I'll carry her memory with me. Quiet as a whisper, she tiptoed out of the study, careful not to make the slightest sound. But just as she stepped out, a voice called out suddenly, "Miss Rowe?" Her heart nearly leapt out of her chest. It was Zyra, Rowe's old nanny. She was murmuring, "Miss, you really shouldn't be wandering around at this hour." But then she paused, her eyes widened in surprise. "Teal? Sneaking around like this? You're clearly up to no good." Without hesitation, she raised her voice. "Guards! Someone come, seize her." Night station nearby rushed over immediately, drawn by the shout. With nowhere left to run, Teal bolted into the room across the hall, hoping to find a place to hide. What she didn't know was that she had stumbled into the guest quarters of the royal palace. The guards, fearing panic and scandal, dared not make a scene. They had no choice but to report the matter to the family patriarch. It was Till's first time in this part of the estate, and the pitch-black surroundings sent shivers down her spine. The silence was suffocating. Her heart raced with dread. Suddenly, a shadow emerged from behind. In the blink of an eye, she was pushed to the ground. "Who are you? What are you doing in my room?" a firm voice demanded. Teal trembled violently, too terrified to respond, her lips quivering uncontrollably. The boy scanned her quickly. Tattered clothing, definitely not Rowe. Golden eyes, unmistakable. And that pale, silvery hair, a clear sign of snow leopard lineage. "Stop crying," he said in a low voice. "If you stay quiet, I'll get you out of here." Teal, flustered and frightened, finally spoke, her voice trembling but determined. "I'm a snow leopard. I want to escape this place." Before the crown prince could question her further, a sharp knock echoed at the door. Instantly alert, he turned to Teal and said, "Come. To the bedroom, quick." Then added, "Can you shapeshift into your beast form?" When she nodded, he said firmly, Shift into a small snow leopard. Hide under the bed, now. Teal didn't hesitate. Clinging to this fragile thread of hope, she dove beneath the bed, heart pounding, breath held tight. Moments later, Cedric Yovano, the Emperor's lieutenant, stepped into the room, face grim. Your Highness, we've got trouble. A maid from the Snow Leopard clan has gone rogue. Witnesses say she slipped into this section of the palace. That white hair, a clear mark of snow leopard blood, and they're calling her a maid. Something's off. The Crown Prince's expression remained cold and unreadable. I haven't seen anyone. You may search, but my chambers are off limits. The Crown Prince, after all, was traveling incognito. His identity couldn't be exposed. He hadn't expected to get caught up in such a mess. This visit was merely meant to evaluate potential brides for the throne. After the officer left, the prince sighed softly and walked over to the bed that he gestured lightly. You can come out now. It's safe. The Crown Prince looked at her, brows slightly furrowed. Why are you running away? And why did they say you were a maid? Teal looked up at the boy in front of her, thinking silently. He's young, but there's no hiding the air of authority around him. He must hold a very high status. Would someone like him really help someone like me? But right now, I don't care who it is. As long as they can save me, I'll take the risk. So she told him everything. Her background, her lineage, and even the details of her escape plan. When she mentioned her father was from the Black Panther clan, the boy's eyes widened in surprise. The money you have isn't nearly enough to get you there, he said after a pause. I'll take you myself. Teal's eyes lit up with joy, a smile finally breaking across her face. Really? Thank you. I swear I'll repay your kindness. She hesitated for a moment, then asked shyly, I still don't know what to call you. May I ask your name? The boy chuckled softly and turned back toward her. My name is Iandros Creation, but you can just call me Ian. Ian turned to leave the room, but before stepping out, he smirked slightly and said, Get some sleep. If you oversleep tomorrow, I'm leaving without you. Teal blinked, startled, and called out softly, But what if someone comes while I'm asleep? Ian noticed her unease and gave a reassuring smile. Don't worry. No one's coming in. As he spoke, he raised his hand and summoned a glowing orb of energy. Teal stared in surprise. What is that? It looks like a glowing white portal. It's my special ability, Ian said casually. A subspace realm, only I can open it. He turned to her. Shift into your snow leopard form. Get inside. That way no one will find you. Seeing her hesitation, he added gently, Don't worry, I can open and close it any time. As long as I'm alive, you won't get lost in there. Teal hesitated for a second. I really don't have a choice. Compared to being caught by the Manners people, this might be my safest bet. After shifting into her snow leopard form, Ian carefully lifted her and placed her into the subspace. When it's safe, I'll bring you back out immediately. Once inside, Teal cautiously opened her eyes, glancing around. What she saw surprised her. It looked like a ruined warehouse. Broken walls, scattered junk, dust-covered shelves. It felt like an abandoned storage room. As she stepped forward, her paw suddenly brushed against something fuzzy. She looked down and screamed internally at a stuffed toy. Startled, she nearly leapt backward, her fur bristling and tail fluffed like a bottle brush. But the moment she touched the stuffed toy, it crumbled like sand, vanishing silently into the air. Startled, she scanned the room again. This time, her eyes landed on a glowing pink cushion, nestled quietly in the corner. Cautiously, she reached out a paw and touched it. It didn't disappear. Thank goodness, she whispered, her heart relaxing that at least here in this bizarre subspace she had found a place to rest. She gave the cushion a gentle pat before curling up on top of it. It's so soft, she sighed, eyes flickering with quiet longing that if only Father could be this gentle with me too. The next morning, the Crown Prince's personal lieutenant made a formal, perfunctory farewell to the Snow Leopard clan's patriarch, stating that they were ready to depart. The old man's expression darkened instantly that he had spent over a month preparing for this royal visit, hoping to impress with his prized granddaughter, Ro. Yet she hadn't even made an appearance. And now the royal guest was suddenly leaving in haste. Utterly unacceptable. He suspected that Till's escape last night might have somehow leaked, souring the guest's interest. And just to make matters worse, Ro herself suddenly barged into the reception hall, clearly unable to contain her frustration. Ro's eyes sparkled with excitement as she looked around. So, does this mean I can start preparing for the capital? But the lieutenant's cold demeanor said it all. Ro had been rejected. Still, she kept her hopeful facade, insisting, "Then, when will you return to take me to the capital?" The man didn't even spare her a glance. With a curt farewell, he turned and walked away. The family patriarch's face darkened. Bitter disappointment brewed in his chest, but there was nothing he could do. He could only force a polite smile, escorting the royal entourage to the gates with stiff courtesy. Just before the carriage departed, the door slammed shut with a loud thud, a final unspoken insult. Inside the carriage, Ian pulled the curtains shut and muttered, "Gods, those people are so loud." The lieutenant frowned and warned, "Your Highness, that was the patriarch of the Nistian family. Such remarks are unbecoming." Ian sighed, rubbing his temples. "That's exactly why I keep saying, I really don't want to get married so soon." If it weren't for the fact that his powers were too overwhelming for his body to handle, Ian wouldn't have needed a partner to help him balance the backlash of his abilities. And of course, that urgency played right into the hands of power-hungry nobles eager to tie themselves to the throne. The lieutenant suddenly muttered, "By the way," the Nistian patriarch looked quite unsettled. "You think it had anything to do with that commotion earlier this morning?" His words jolted Ian's memory. Damn. The little snow leopard is still in my subspace. Without hesitation, Ian summoned the portal again, gently pulling Teal out with a tenderness rarely seen from royalty. The lieutenant nearly stumbled from the shock. "What the—" Before he could even regain composure, Ian calmly declared, "I'm heading to the Black Panther clan's territory. I'm taking this little one with me. Look at her eyes, golden eyes on a snow leopard. I need to know, is she truly the blood of Cassius Astrian?" The lieutenant's expression shifted. That name stirred old memories. Rena Nistian, the noblewoman who defied her entire family to build a life with a man from the Black Panther clan. Cassius Astrian. And the rumors. They said the two of them once had a pair of twin children. But just as Rena was about to give birth to her third child, she mysteriously vanished without a trace. Shortly after, the Nistian family announced her tragic death. Even though Cassius Astrian never saw her body, nor knew the fate of their unborn child, he was eventually forced to hold a funeral in her honor. The lieutenant's mind reeled. Could Teal be that child? The one everyone believed had perished before birth? Ian offered no further explanation. He simply said, "Make haste. We need to arrive as quickly as possible." 3 days later, Astrian City. The Astrian family's steward, Pardon, led a grand entourage to formally welcome the crown prince. Ian didn't waste words. "Pardon, I need to see Lord Cassius Astrian immediately." Pardon lowered his head. "Your Highness, the family head is currently away from the estate." Ian's gaze sharpened. "Then summon him now. I must speak to him without delay." At that moment, the lieutenant lifted the carriage curtain and gently helped Peel, now dressed in elegant finery, down to the ground. Pardon's eyes widened. He froze in place. Golden eyes, silvery hair. That face. It was like seeing a ghost from the past, like looking at the child from the old legends. Ian spoke calmly to the steward. "Tell your master, I believe I found Asterian's youngest daughter." The steward froze for a moment, eyes widening with shock, then quickly turned to lead the group into the estate. As they stepped inside, the grandeur of the interior left Teal momentarily stunned. This place. It's nearly twice the size of the Snow Leopard Manor. She trailed behind Ian, her steps cautious. Thoughts tangled. To live in a place like this. Father must be so powerful. Could someone like him ever accept me? Before their arrival, the lieutenant had reassured her. "Lord Astrian will surely welcome you with open arms. It's your first meeting. Of course you must be well prepared." She glanced down at her dress, elegant and regal like something a princess would wear. "Even if Ian said it suits me, isn't this a little too extravagant? But it doesn't matter. Father probably won't like me anyway. So, the carriage ride, the beautiful clothes, the warm kindness, all of it were things I'd never experienced before." Without realizing it, she tightened her grip on Ian's hand, a quiet thought blooming in her heart. Will I ever get to see Ian again after this? They soon reached the reception hall. Teal stood awkwardly at the edge, too nervous to sit, hands clenched at her sides, as if even touching a chair would be overstepping. Seeing her frozen stiff like a statue, Ian chuckled softly. With a sigh, he picked her up and gently placed her onto the chair himself. Moments later, plates of fragrant, steaming food were brought to the table. Teal's stomach growled audibly, growling, but she still sat quietly, eyes lowered, too nervous to reach out. Ian noticed it, sighing inwardly. No wonder she's starving. On the road, she refused all my food and only ate her stale bread, so he smiled and said gently, "Eat. This was all prepared for you." Teal stared at the food, conflicted that wouldn't it be rude to just start eating? Might seem ungrateful. Before she could overthink any further, Ian simply picked up a piece and popped it into her mouth. The flavor burst across her tongue, warm, tender, sweet. Absolutely heavenly, she gasped, eyes sparkling, her voice filled with wonder. "Ew, it's so good." But just then, the door burst open, and standing at the front was none other than Cassius Astrian, Lord of the Black Panther clan. Teal jumped to her feet, body tense with shock. That man, that's him. That's my father. Her mind went completely blank. What do I do? I should at least say something, greet him, right? In that moment, her grandfather's cruel words echoed in her mind. Foolish, ignorant girl. I've never met anyone more arrogant than him. With that filthy blood running in your veins, you'll never be anything special. If he ever lays eyes on you, he'll kill you on sight. The memory struck her like a lightning bolt. Her whole body began to tremble uncontrollably. She stood before her father, head bowed, like a guilty child awaiting punishment. Cassius Astrian looked at the small, timid girl before him, and for a moment his throat tightened. Words refused to leave his mouth. Teal noticed his silence, and panic surged within her. He's angry. He's really angry. Should I beg for mercy now? But then she clenched her fists. No, Ian and Lord Cedric brought me all this way. I can't just give up now. Even if there's only a sliver of hope, I have to try. Summoning every ounce of courage, she reached for the pendant at her chest, holding it up with trembling hands. My mother's name was Rena. Her voice quivered, but she pressed on. Please let me stay here. I don't eat much. I can sleep anywhere. I'll act like I don't even exist. So, please let me stay. The humble plea, so fragile yet so piercing, struck Cassius like a blade straight to the heart. He could hardly fathom what kind of torment that family had inflicted on this child. What had they done to make her so timid, so broken? 1-3. Slowly he reached out, intending to gently touch her hair. But Teal instinctively flinched, shrinking back further and further, like a wounded animal expecting another blow. Cassius gritted his teeth, doing his best to suppress the emotions surging inside him. He turned sharply and said, "Take her to a room, let her rest properly. I need to speak with our guests." Meanwhile, Teal's heart felt heavy. He really doesn't want me here, does he? She looked down at the last few coins in her pocket, uncertainty clawing at her thoughts. What am I supposed to do now? Maybe I'll have to sell this dress. It was a gift from Ian, but in her mind, survival had to come first. Just then, a late arriving maid entered the room and noticed Teal quietly wiping tears from her face. The maid hurried over with concern. "Don't cry, sweetheart. Eat something first. The Lord will come see you soon." Upon hearing the maid's words, Teal quickly wiped away her tears. These warm dishes. Who knows when I'll get to eat something like this again? Without hesitation, she picked up the bread and began eating hungrily. As she chewed, her thoughts grew heavy. If I really get cast out, at least I'll have eaten enough to last me 2 days. I need to eat as much as I can now. Meanwhile, Cassius had finally been informed of the girl's full story. A child, still so young, yet already carrying scars all over her body. And to make things worse, the Nistian family had labeled her a deranged maid. Hearing this, Cassius's brows furrowed deeply. He could already piece together the likely truth of what had happened to Teal. In the Black Panther lineage, the family with the stronger manifestation of power would be chosen as the ruling bloodline. And yet, even by the 6th generation, Astrian remained the dominant force, while Nistian's power had all but faded, now barely maintaining the title of a duke house in name only. It was in this political landscape that Rena, born into Nistian, had exhibited power greater even than Asterian's, and was seen as the last beacon of hope for her crumbling lineage. But now the current heir Cornelia, despite being groomed as successor, lacked the aptitude to claim the throne. At this rate, the next sovereign would once again belong to Asterian's line. So they made their move. They hid Rena's child, raising her in secret, hoping she would one day awaken powers to rival her mother's. How tragic that a child, used as a pawn in a war of pride and power between adults. Suddenly a maid rushed in, panic etched across her face. "Lord Cassius, the young lady your guest brought, she's fainted." Cassius froze, panic flashing across his expression. Without hesitation he hurried toward the dining hall, heart pounding. There he found Teal collapsed in the maid's arms, her face pale as snow. She was mumbling over and over, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I was wrong." Cassius immediately barked orders. "Get her into something more comfortable. Call the doctor now." As the servants carried Teal away, Cassius stood alone in the dining room. He looked around at the overturned chairs and half-eaten plates, and said nothing for a long while. When he finally entered the bedroom, the maid quietly explained, It seems she ate too much too fast. Probably a case of overeating and an upset stomach. She even vomited, and in the guest room, she kept watching us fearfully, like she was expecting to be punished." The maid's voice softened, tinged with sorrow. "Who knows what she's been through all this time?" Cassius turned to the doctor. "What's her condition?" The family's head physician, Dr. Cade, gave a measured response. "Severe malnutrition. Her growth is noticeably stunted compared to other children her age. And young beastkin, when sleep-deprived or under extreme stress, often fall into sudden bouts of sleep. She's only resting, my lord. Nothing serious." Cassius sat quietly beside the bed, eyes fixed on the sleeping girl. "I haven't even told you yet that you're free to live here in Astrian. That if you wish to stay, I'll give you everything." He whispered softly, his voice full of warmth. "This is your home now. You don't have to be afraid anymore. I should have said this to you long ago." Gently, he picked up a pair of scissors and cut a lock of Till's hair. Only with a formal bloodline test could her identity be officially registered within the Astrian household. As for his own hair, it had been stored in the sacred temple long ago. He had always believed that one day he would find his child, so he had left his bloodline imprint in the temple vault, sealed in hope. And now, that hope has finally borne fruit. With everything settled, the crown prince began preparations to return to the palace. The only regret was that he hadn't had the chance to properly say goodbye to Teal. Just then, another figure arrived in haste. Till's grandfather, rushing in to see the granddaughter he had thought lost forever. He was none other than Duke Appios Ewald Astrian, Patriarch Emeritus of the Astrian household, leader of the Black Panther clan, and one of the empire's most influential statesmen. The steward, stunned to see him rushing in so disheveled, exclaimed, "My lord, weren't you scheduled to dine with His Majesty today? Does that even matter right now?" Till's grandfather snapped, his voice thick with emotion. "My granddaughter, whom we all thought dead, has come back. What could possibly be more important? Where is she now? Are you certain she's Rena's child?" Cassius nodded solemnly. "The parentage test has already been initiated, but I'm almost certain. She was hidden away in the Nistian estate, a snow leopard with golden eyes. That alone speaks volumes. I want to see her. Now." The old duke's voice trembled with urgency, but Cassius gently intervened. "She's resting. She's still very weak." So reluctantly, the grandfather tiptoed to the doorway, sneaking a peek through the small gap in the door. Even that brief glimpse was enough. His heart swelled with quiet joy. He slowly closed the door behind him, suppressing his emotions, and silently walked away. Turning to Cassius, his tone grew darker. "So tell me, what's really going on? Why would Nistian hide this child from us?" Cassius sighed. "Because they didn't want to relinquish Rena's child. She suffered greatly. The crown prince himself was shocked the first time he saw her. Meanwhile, Till's dreams were filled with terror. She was running, desperately fleeing, from countless black hands reaching out to drag her down. No matter how far she ran, the nightmare chased her, dark shadows clutching at her heels. With a gasp, she jolted awake, drenched in cold sweat, only to find herself lying on a soft, warm bed. Teal instinctively ran downstairs, only to hear voices of unfamiliar men talking outside the door. "I'll kill that bastard." The sharp, venomous tone sent a chill down her spine. A wave of anxiety surged in her chest. "I knew it. This family doesn't want me here either." That night, under the veil of silence, Teal transformed into her snow leopard form once more and slipped away. I won't steal anything, she told herself. I'll just leave quietly, without causing trouble for anyone. Not long after, Cassis received a report from the guards. She slipped away during the guard shift change. All units are now mobilized to search for her. Cassis immediately ordered, "Do not frighten the child, under no circumstances." At the same time he raised his hand, summoning a swirl of blazing flames. The fire twisted midair, morphing into tiny glowing fish-like creatures. "Go," he whispered. "Find her. A snow leopard cub with white hair and golden eyes. That's my daughter." Deep in his heart, Cassis made a vow. "I've done nothing for you before, but this time, I'll make sure you hear everything I never got to say." Soon after, his salamander scouts returned, reporting, "We found her, in the basement." The child was crying. Her sobs echoed softly through the cold, empty basement. The white-haired child trembling and curled into herself. Moments later, Cassis arrived, holding a lantern as he descended the stairs. The sight that greeted him pierced his heart. Teal huddled in the corner, shaking like a frightened animal. She whimpered, her voice trembling, "Don't kill me. I'll go back to Nistin. I'm sorry. Please forgive me." Cassis stepped forward, his voice low but gentle. "Come here, child. Come to me." But she didn't seem to hear him. She just kept muttering, "I'm sorry. I don't even have any power." That single line stabbed deep into his heart, a voice soaked in self-loathing and despair. He knelt beside her, trying to comfort her. "It doesn't matter if you have powers or not. You are enough, just you. That's all I need, so please. Come to me, child." It was only then that Teal seemed to register his presence. She gasped and looked up, startled, her eyes wide with fear. Immediately she curled up even tighter, sobbing again. "I'm sorry. I'll be good. I'll do whatever you say." Then, between hiccups and tears, she cried out, "But I can still do this. So please don't kill me." She raised her trembling hands, and suddenly, a soft golden glow burst forth from her palms. Two golden fish made of light swam gracefully between her fingers. Her power had awakened. Cassis stared in utter astonishment, eyes wide with disbelief as the golden light danced in her hands. Two glowing fish weaving gently between her fingers. This wasn't just a sign of power. It was a mark of bloodline resonance. But before he could speak a word, Teal collapsed, overwhelmed by exhaustion and emotion. When she opened her eyes again, her father was already there, sitting silently by her bedside, watching over her with calm tenderness. She vaguely remembered hearing him speak while she was unconscious. Soft, comforting words she couldn't quite make out through her fear. It wasn't until the family's personal physician came to examine her that Teal realized. Her place in her father's heart had shifted completely, no longer tolerated but cherished. The doctor smiled and said, "With those golden eyes, young lady, there's nothing in this estate you can't do." Teal hesitated, then quietly asked, "Can I really stay here?" Cassis gave her a gentle smile. "Of course, you can eat whenever you're hungry. You don't have to live like you're invisible anymore. No more storage rooms, no more cold floors, no more scraps of bread. This is your home now. You don't need to fear anything, just live peacefully." Teal's eyes widened, and in an instant tears flooded her cheeks. She covered her mouth, sobbing silently, the weight of kindness finally breaking the dam of pain. After the doctor's examination was complete, Teal finally gathered enough strength to begin eating again. Yet as she quietly ate, a shadow of unease lingered in her thoughts. "But I clearly heard someone say they wanted to kill me. That voice, it sounded almost like grandfather's. The father said I could stay here. Maybe everything will really be all right." Just then, a maid entered with a gentle smile, carrying a delicate dessert. "Miss, once you finish your soup, please try this special pudding the head chef made just for you. The kitchen has been in a frenzy ever since they heard you were malnourished. The chefs have been working non-stop to prepare meals that are both delicious and easy for you to eat." The maid carefully held the pudding to her lips and said warmly, "Sweet things help brighten the heart, Mississippi. Come have a taste." The moment the pudding touched her tongue, its silky texture, that soft sweetness, Teal's eyes brimmed with tears. "This is the most delicious thing I've ever tasted in my life." Still, she couldn't fully shake her doubt. "Can I really stay here?" The maid nodded, her smile gentle and reassuring. Of course you can. You'll eat well, do what you love, and most of all, you'll be happy here. Truly happy. Teal looked up again hesitantly. Then, can I stay with you too? I really like you, big sister. You're kind and warm. I want to always be with you. Teal's words, I want to stay with you forever, made the maid's heart burst with warmth. She beamed with joy, utterly delighted. My name is Liao, she said cheerfully, her eyes sparkling. And guess what? I've already submitted a request to become your personal handmaid. Teal's face lit up with joy. Really? That means we can always be together. Meanwhile, in the drawing room, the old duke was pacing restlessly, unable to sit still, his concern for his granddaughter growing by the minute. Cassis finally entered, getting straight to the point. Father, the child's awakened power isn't the snow leopard's ice nor the black panther's flame. She possesses the sacred ability of light. The duke froze, eyes widening in disbelief that he stumbled slightly, his body trembling from shock. That's impossible, he muttered. Light affinity? Then the legend, it's true. It was an old tale passed down for generations within the empire. 2 ancient prophecies about those who wield the power of light. According to legend, the child blessed by the light god Lisette would one day bring dawn to lands where sunlight never rises, dispel the eternal night, and restore the balance between light and shadow. In modern times, no one truly believed such an ability could exist anymore. Light affinity was merely a myth buried in ancient scripture. A legend, nothing more than a story. Yet now, his own granddaughter had awakened the power of light. If this truth were to be made public, the royal family and the sacred temples would scramble to claim the child, that it would be nothing short of a sensational upheaval across the entire empire. The prophecy made real. But Cassis remained calm. Don't worry, father. Even the palace, even the temple wouldn't dare turn Astrian into an enemy, let alone take Teal away. But the old duke shook his head. That's not all I'm worried about. He lowered his voice. Our Black Panther lineage carries a second, hidden prophecy about the Child of Light. A secret known only to the heads and heirs of both the Nistian and Asturian households. His expression turned grim. If that child truly holds the power to break the Asturian curse, then everything we know is about to change. Father, Cassis interjected, his voice calm yet resolute. A legend is still just a legend. Teal, she's simply the daughter I've only just now found, that I don't want to burden her with a fate she never asked for. The old duke paused for a moment, then gave a quiet nod, accepting Cassis's words. For now, he wasn't a patriarch, he was simply a grandfather. A few days passed. Teal was slowly recovering, but still not quite used to this vast, unfamiliar estate. She would always sit timidly at the far edge of the sofa, never truly relaxing. Until one day, her overly affectionate yet gentle father picked her up without a word and placed her squarely in the center. That simple gesture, warm, steady, unapologetically close, finally melted the lingering wariness in Teal's heart. Cassis took the opportunity to speak gently, telling her everything. About her awakening, her power, their family's history, and the Empire's growing interest in her. In just a matter of days, the girl who once had nothing had become one of the Empire's most treasured beings. When he finished, Teal looked up and asked earnestly, Father, then what can I do for the family? That sudden maturity, that heartfelt sincerity, caught Cassis off guard, hitting him like a wave of warmth and sorrow all at once. Cassis looked at her with unwavering sincerity. You don't have to do anything for the family. Even if you had no power, no talent, you would still be my daughter. You're a rightful member of House Astrian. The words, my daughter, echoed in Teal's heart, warm, heavy, and overwhelming. Her eyes welled up with tears again. She whispered, but grandfather said children should always bring value to the family. Cassis frowned slightly, then replied with cold clarity, if a family depends on its children to survive, then that family deserves to crumble. His voice softened again, his gaze full of warmth. You're still a child. You don't need to carry that kind of burden. Just live the life you want to live. I told you about your powers not because I expect anything from you, but because I wanted you to know how special you truly are. He gently reached out and ran his hand through her hair, his voice a soothing balm. Do you understand? All you need to do is eat well, play freely, and smile as much as you like. That's all I want from you. Teal's face lit up in pure joy, her laughter blooming like spring. She nodded eagerly, happiness glowing in her eyes. Meanwhile, back at the Nistian estate, her grandfather was still fuming in frustration. In weather like this, running off is suicide. She's just like her mother, never knew how to sit still and behave. He ordered the knights dispatched for the search. If they found a corpse, they were to bring it back immediately, no exceptions. But if she's still breathing, even just barely, then finish her off yourself and bring the body back. The next morning, Teal finally saw the room his father had meticulously prepared for him. It was astonishingly spacious, several times larger than Roi's own chamber, grand enough to host a banquet. Even more surprising, there was actually a personal butler already waiting, just to serve her alone. The Duke had even prepared all kinds of gifts for her in advance. Each one was exquisitely crafted and clearly handpicked with care. Yet when the word Duke came to mind, Teal couldn't help but recall the chilling voice he'd once overheard outside the door, an aged tone laced with menace, seemingly ordering someone's death. Even now, Teal still believed the Duke didn't like her one bit, let alone would ever come see her in person. It wasn't until later that she found out her grandfather had been swamped with official duties and wouldn't be back for a few more days. And so, with unease still lingering in his heart, Teal finally stood face to face with the father he had only heard of, an encounter as tense as it was inevitable. A few days later, Teal finally summoned the courage to enter the Duke's room. The Duke got straight to the point. "I heard you thought I disliked you? I came today to clear up that misunderstanding myself." Though he spoke in the gentlest tone he could manage, Teal still kept her head lowered, unable to meet his eyes. She had always felt an instinctive fear toward the title of grandfather. In her previous life, her maternal grandfather had died frozen on a balcony, and just recently she had overheard this grandfather seemingly speaking of killing her. The misunderstanding ran so deep that the old man looked completely bewildered, utterly at a loss. He grew flustered, stumbling over his words, nearly dropping to his knees in desperation. "That was meant for your maternal grandfather. Just thinking about how he hurt you made my blood boil. I'm so sorry I frightened you. Will you forgive your old grandpa? It's all Karthus's fault. That guy told me you were shy around strangers and wouldn't let me see you sooner." Seeing her grandfather's awkward but earnest explanation, Teal couldn't help but let out a soft laugh, breaking the tension. "Thank you, Grandpa, for giving me such a spacious room," she said quietly, her voice finally carrying a hint of warmth and trust. Her words moved the old Duke deeply, his eyes glistening with emotion. Compared to his two grandsons, this granddaughter's sweetness and tenderness were something they could never offer. He hurriedly brought out a grand collection of 100 exquisite gifts he had prepared, laying them out before her like treasures. One plush Black Panther caught Teal's attention instantly. She clutched it in her arms, unable to put it down, a rare smile blooming on her face. The Duke chuckled. "You know, just like your brothers, you loved Black Panther toys when you were little." "My brothers liked this too?" Teal asked, clearly puzzled. It was the first time she'd heard she even had brothers. The Duke turned to the maid, frowning slightly. "You didn't tell her about Fouard and Rudian?" The maid bowed apologetically. "No, Your Grace. I thought it best to let the young lady settle in first." The Duke nodded and gently explained, "You have two older brothers. When they heard you had arrived, they immediately set off from the academy to return home." This should have been good news, but a wave of unease swept over Teal once more. "Will they blame me for our mother's death?" The question clung to her heart like a shadow, an answer that only their return could reveal. For now, she tucked away her worries, nestling against her grandfather with a soft, affectionate smile, playing the part of a cheerful child, just so he wouldn't see through her growing fear. Late into the night, father and son sat together, speaking in hushed tones about the child's troubled past. At last, they resolved to deal with the snow leopard family that had cast such darkness over Teal's childhood. Not long after, news reached the maternal grandfather's side. His family's key trade routes had been severed. Along with them, all supplies and resource support were about to be cut off entirely. If Asterion fully blocked the trade passages, then the land-based imports and exports would be completely paralyzed. Nistian, located in a treacherous and isolated area, could only access other territories through Asterion's domain. If the land routes were cut off, they'd be forced to export minerals by sea, an inefficient, costly alternative. Worse yet, wasn't it the leopard clan leader's duty to provide these supplies in the first place? Asterion always delivered supplies in abundance. I used those resources to barely sustain the family's finances. Now they want to stop the flow. Do they expect me to cough up everything I secretly diverted? His face twisted in frustration. Even Appio's people figured that out. The butler silently handed him an envelope and said softly, "My lord, perhaps this is the reason." He tore it open and inside was a cold, concise message. It has been determined that Nistian is unfit to raise the child. From this moment onward, Teal shall be placed under Asterion's guardianship. Only now did he realize, Teal was already gone. A flicker of disbelief crossed his face. Even by carriage it would take 3 days to reach Asterion. How did she get there so quickly? Suddenly it all clicked. Of course. It must have been that royal carriage from a few days ago that secretly whisked Teal away. Damn it. What kind of charm does that child have, to make everyone so eager to help her? Enraged, he immediately ordered the wet nurse from that day, along with all the knights who failed in their capture, to be flogged. Roi could no longer stay silent. After all, that was her wet nurse. She couldn't allow such cruelty. But the head of the family had lost all reason. For the first time he snapped at Roi in a fit of anger. Roi turned and stormed off without a word, not even glancing back. Meanwhile, Teal was in her room, throwing herself into magic practice with all her might. She frowned in confusion. Why is my magic always so small? It was so powerful back in the basement. Frustrated, she thought to herself, Roi can easily create all kinds of ice spells, so why can't I control mine at all? She shook her head and whispered softly to herself, "Don't worry. Daddy said I'm a special child. One day I'll make it happen." Just then Leah stepped in with a warm smile and said, "Miss, it's time for dinner." Today marked Teal's first time dining with the rest of the family. She felt anxious, her heart beating a little too fast. For the first time, every member of the household had gathered together under one roof. A formal and momentous occasion. Karthus noticed her immediately and waved her over with a warm smile. "Come, sit over here." A graceful young man rose politely and introduced himself with a gentle smile. "My name is Felradi Asterion." Teal nodded sweetly. "I'm Teal. I'm 7 years old." "Only 7? Another voice cut in, blunt and careless. Radian Asterion looked at her with open curiosity. "So this is my little sister?" Felradi frowned slightly, his tone firm. "Radian, mind your words. Don't speak to your sister like that." But Radian didn't stop. "No, I mean she really does look kind of odd. Snow leopard fur and black panther eyes. Even mixed blood usually takes after one parent. But you golden eyes, white hair. That's pretty weird." Teal's heart sank. Those words echoed painfully in her mind, bringing back the cruel things others had said to her. "You filthy half-breed. Where are you looking with those terrifying eyes?" So that's why. They looked at her with disdain. Not because of who she was, but because her appearance was a mix that didn't belong anywhere. Suddenly, Karthus barked sharply, "Radian, stop with the nonsense." His tone was harsh enough to make Radian flinch in his seat. Karthus added sternly, "Your sister is shy around strangers. Keep your distance for now." Radian opened his mouth to protest, but Felradi responded first with a calm nod. "Understood, father." He then turned to his younger brother and added gently, "Try not to speak so flippantly, Radian." Radian looked ready to retort, but their father cut him off again, this time with an impatient sigh. "Enough. Just eat." During the meal, Felradi leaned toward Teal with a bright smile. "I'm truly happy to have such an adorable little sister." His words made the tension in Teal's heart slowly ease, and for the first time that evening, a genuine smile touched her lips. It seemed that, in this awkward first family gathering, the only one truly wounded was Radian. After dinner, Radian muttered under his breath, "Hey, didn't you say you hated having a sister?" Felradi raised an eyebrow and replied, "No, I said I hated this kind of little brother." Radian huffed indignantly, "What do you mean I'm your little brother? We were born on the same day." Seeing that Felradi still didn't respond, Radian scowled and snapped, "Hey, are you ignoring me? You bastard." Felradi only smiled calmly. "Anyway, we finally got to meet our sister. You should treat her well and get along with her." Radian huffed. "Even if he didn't say that, I'd treat her well. The real problem is you." Truth be told, Felrady did harbor suspicions. The youngest daughter of the Asterian family, accepted without even waiting for a paternity test. Her strangely perfect appearance, the seamless blend of snow leopard fur and panther eyes, that delicate, endearing frame. It all felt orchestrated. Why hadn't anyone questioned it? Father and grandfather were overjoyed, practically euphoric. Even Rudian seemed to find it amusing. And then there was the light ability. Supposedly, this sacred power could lift the curse that had haunted the Panther clan for generations. The curse of Orfeo, the madness that comes from overusing one's abilities, leading eventually to complete loss of reason. And I, Felrady, was born with a more severe case of madness than anyone else. It began the moment I drew breath. Could she really dispel that curse? With some mythical light-based power? He scoffed under his breath. Is it? Everyone had been fooled. She was simply using that petite, harmless appearance to deceive all of Asterion. I won't fall for her act. Felrady reaffirmed silently to himself. The next day, Teal noticed that her two brothers had been following her everywhere. No matter where she went, they were never far behind, like shadows clinging to her footsteps. The maid tried to reassure her. The young masters are simply following the family head's instructions, not to approach you directly for the time being. But ever since that first dinner, Felrady's gentle gaze had completely vanished. Now every glance he gave her felt like scrutiny, measured, cold, and distant. Just then the maid rushed in to report, "Your Highness, the Crown Prince has arrived." At those words, the two eavesdroppers hidden among the flower bushes popped out immediately. Rudian grumbled, "Why is it that we're not allowed near our sister, but he can meet her whenever he wants? Even if he's some kind of lifesaver, that's not fair." That damned male pride, the competitive instinct, flared vividly in that moment, turning even family affection into a contest of dominance. No sooner had the words left their mouths than the Crown Prince swaggered in with a walk so arrogant it practically screamed, "I answer to no one." Within seconds, the trio launched into a full-blown war of words. "I went through all that trouble to bring your precious little sister back, and this is how the Black Panther clan repays me?" The Crown Prince sneered, brows arched in mock offense. Felrady opened his mouth, clearly ready to fire back. But then reason caught up with him. Was it even worth arguing at this point? After all, they hadn't even confirmed if Teal was truly their sister. Seeing the situation spiral, Teal stepped forward herself, trying to mediate. "Brothers, I just want a little bit of time to talk to His Highness. Just a moment, please." Her voice was soft yet earnest. The brothers answered in perfect contradiction. One curtly said, "No," the other sighed and said, "Fine." The Crown Prince, caught in the chaos of conflicting responses, looked about ready to explode, teetering on the edge of losing his composure entirely. At that moment, Teal gently tugged on Felrady's hand and looked up at him with a soft voice. "Brother, can you come with me?" Faced with her sweet request, Felrady's attitude changed instantly, like ice melting under the sun. "Of course." He agreed without hesitation, then glanced at Rudian. "Rudian, you don't need to come. You've got things to do." "What things?" Rudian asked suspiciously. "Isn't there still a mountain of assignments from the academy?" Felrady replied with a deceptively cheerful smile. "You sly fox," Rudian muttered under his breath. Felrady maintained his pleasant facade, calling it accompanying her, but inwardly he labeled it supervising. Yet in Rudian's eyes, this wasn't supervision at all. It was infatuation. Felrady was clearly smitten, doting on Teal shamelessly while pretending otherwise. The group then moved to the main hall, where the Crown Prince began asking about Teal's recent life. Upon hearing that she had been living quite well in Asterion, he nodded slightly, visibly more at ease. The Crown Prince snapped his fingers with effortless flair. Immediately, a procession of maids entered the hall, their arms filled with elegant dresses and ornate gift boxes, transforming the room into something resembling a royal festival. Teal's eyes widened, her mouth falling slightly open in astonishment. She had never seen such extravagance. Felrady, however, frowned and said coolly, "Thank you for the gifts, Ian. But these dresses, Asterion can purchase them just as well." The Crown Prince replied with a hint of mockery. "When I first met her, she was dressed in something that didn't even qualify as clothing. More like a tattered straw mat. Every time I think of that, I feel even these gifts aren't enough." Doesn't Asterion feel the same? Or perhaps, you simply didn't know. Their gazes clashed with unmistakable tension, the air thickening with hostility. One could almost feel a fight brewing on the horizon. Teal quietly stood up and walked toward the display of dresses, realizing she had to intervene before things escalated further. She browsed briefly, then carefully chose what she thought was the simplest, most modest dress. Turning to Ian, she said gently, "This one is enough." "Thank you, Ian. There's really no need for so many. I'm happy with just this." The Crown Prince's expression stiffened. "Do you not like the gifts I brought? If not, then please just take them all. Don't refuse. Just take them." "Of course, your brothers could buy you these things too," the Crown Prince said casually, letting his words hang just a little too pointedly. "But last time they only got you one dress." I couldn't help but feel a bit guilty. Teal immediately recalled the yellow dress, and her heart warmed with emotion. That was the first gift she'd ever received in her life, and to her, it was something precious enough to be treasured forever. Felrady let out a quiet sigh beside her. "Well, you might as well get used to it. There's going to be a flood of this kind of thing soon. Once it's officially announced that you're Asterian's youngest daughter, people will come flocking to curry favor, each bringing gifts more lavish than the last. Dresses, jewels, you'll be drowning in them. Compared to what's coming, today's delivery isn't even that excessive." The not-so-subtle sarcasm in his voice was enough to grate on the Crown Prince's nerves. His expression darkened noticeably. He suddenly pulled Teal to his side and declared, "I'm taking her to the royal palace." Felrady's expression shifted sharply, voice turning cold. "Are you planning to kidnap the youngest daughter of the Black Panther family?" The Crown Prince responded slowly. "The paternity test results aren't out yet. Isn't it a bit early to call her the daughter of Asterion?" Upon hearing the words paternity test, Teal's face paled slightly, anxiety rising in her chest. "So that's it. But I really am father's daughter. I belong to Asterion. What if the test says I'm not?" The Crown Prince seemed to notice her unease. He offered a gentle smile. "Don't worry. If there's any inconsistency in the results, just come to me. You're so adorable. I'd love to bring you into the royal family." Felrady's composure shattered. He immediately pulled his sister back to his side and snapped, "There's no way that'll happen. It's impossible. Do you think golden eyes and white hair are just common traits?" He bent down, looking at Teal seriously. "Listen carefully. If anyone tries to take you away, you must say no." Teal blinked in confusion and said softly, "But Ian is a guest of the estate." Felrady's gaze sharpened. "It doesn't matter who it is. If they're not family, you say no. Always. Got it?" Then he gently turned her around to face Ian. "All right, now, show me how you'll say it." Teal hesitated, stammering for a moment before finally whispering, I don't want to." The Crown Prince rubbed his temples, utterly speechless at Felrady's overprotective antics. Was he guarding a sister or a national treasure? The Crown Prince turned to leave, his voice light with amusement. "I'm off now. Don't treat me like some uninvited guest, all right? You do tend to forget who I am sometimes." Felrady smiled calmly. "Of course not. I simply know very well. I'm part of Asterion too." Teal jogged a few steps to catch up with the Crown Prince. Looking up at him, she asked softly, will you come again?" The Crown Prince took her hand and pressed a kiss to it, smiling. "Of course I will, when your brothers aren't around. Wait for me. Next time I'll bring you something even better." His words left Teal slightly dazed, her cheeks flushed as if caught in a dream. Felrady quickly stepped in to steady her. A moment later, Radian came rushing over. "What took so long? That guy didn't do anything weird to Teal, did he?" Felrady sighed. "He did." Radian's eyes widened in horror. "What? You said he did." Felrady turned seriously to Teal. "Didn't I teach you? If someone tries to take you away, you say, no." Teal lowered her head, ears drooping slightly, thinking quietly, "But I didn't want to refuse." Yet still, she obediently replied, "Yes." Felrady reminded himself silently, "Yes. This isn't just about personal feelings, it's about Asterion's reputation. Whether she's truly blood-related or not, she's now the youngest daughter of Asterion. It's only natural that I care." He turned to Radian and said seriously, From now on, try to keep Ian away from Teal as much as possible. Teal glanced at her two brothers, both fuming with protective fury, and let out a helpless sigh. But, I actually want to see Ian.